it's not gaming related in a sense of video games. This is more of like a DM vlog series that I want to try and do. I don't know how often it will be because I only play D&D twice a month. I do play in another group. I'm a player in that group, so maybe I'll do a player vlog at some point. But for the moment, I just want to do a wee DM vlog, and I want to do it about my newest game that I've started. That's only in its third or fourth session at this point. Now I'm going to give a little backstory. Basically, I've been playing in my own custom setting for about 2 or 3 years now with another group, and I wanted to have another game going, but I can't really host, unfortunately, due to the size of my house and the fact that I don't live alone. So I had someone in work who I'm good pals with. I've made good friends with them, and I said to them that I'm thinking about starting up another game, and they says they want to see my DMing style. They want to have me as a game. So I said to them, well, it's just finding a place to host, and then they said they could host, and I was like, okay, if you want to host, you can pick the type of setting what you do, the type of game we do. Do you want to do a fantasy one? Do you want to do another system, D&D, or another one of that? And he's a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I had just recently picked up the fifth edition supplement of Adventures in Middle Earth, and he said he wanted to run a Lord of the Rings game, or he wanted to play in a Lord of the Rings game, and I was like, okay. A little bit of backstory with my attempts to run in pre-established settings. I've done one before, and it's actually on this channel, I believe. I did it with a few other YouTubers in the past. It was a Dragon Age themed one that kind of just went, and it's not the best example of my DMing skill because I was a first time DM, and it's very bad from what I remember, and it's something that I'm just like, I like to think I've got better, and my players say I have. I'm still learning. It's an ever learning DM style, and this is no small influence from Critical Role, High Rollers, and role play, and a few other D&D stuff out there that I want to dive in the world of DMing again. But running in a pre-established setting kind of scared me a little bit, mostly just because I don't know Lord of the Rings that well. I know it. I know more than the average person. I mean, no offense to anyone who loves Lord of the Rings. I've tried to read the books, but they're quite intimidating for me personally, especially someone who doesn't read that much beyond like D&D books, of course. So I had to do a lot of research, and I did end up having to purchase this as well, which is the Lore Master Guide, which actually gives you a good amount of information on this. Now, I'm going to talk about our latest session in this system, just because it's fresh in my mind, and this was last about a week ago as of recording this video, and I'll give a brief backstory of the party. Now, when I was coming up with the idea of where to set it, it was the book recommends setting it between Smog and the Fellowship. Like, there's a big nice chunk of time there where nothing really happens. Adventure wise, I think I can't remember if it says in this book that this stretch of time there's not much known, or that there's other areas that are known about, but the area where this suggests you set, which is I think it's basically Erebor to, well, actually it has the map in it. Let me grab the map. The Wildlands, basically. It's actually pretty much the entirety of most of the Middle Earth you see in the books, so it gives you like a bit of everything. But the region it suggests you set in is from this roughly where Dol Guldur is up to where Erebor is. So that's kind of basically the Hobbit area. The movies, not the Shire, and that's where I was like, okay, I'll set it there, but I'll at least start them somewhere familiar and give the gentleman who's hosting me basically a little bit of fan service. So I started it in the Prancing Pony, where basically the group, which consists of a Mirkwood elf, an Ironhelm's dwarf, a hobbit from the Shire, who is a stout one. I can't remember the house name. Two Duradine, a warrior, and a warden. Because in this system, there aren't really like the standard classes. You've got warrior, but there's things like warden, wayfarer, treasure hunter, scholar, um, uh, what's the other one called? It's the Slayer. That's the one. These are basically kind of reskinned and retooled classes from 5th edition to be more of a bit of a Lord of the Rings vibe. And the main issue also that I had was the fact that there are no magic casters in this system. Because Lord of the Rings, while it is high fantasy with the magic, you don't really see player characters with magic, because the only people that have magic in a sense are like god tier level, like Gandalf, Radagast, Sauron, Saruman, and some of the elves here or there. It's basically magic that the common folks would never be able to touch, and it actually addresses it in the Lore Master Guide, suggesting some spells that actually could be okay. I'll see if I can find the page on it, because it does actually list some spells. Hey, these ones could work if you do want to consider them. Yes, it's like a wee list there. There's no like fireball. There's mostly support spells and simple spells like aid, alarm, zone of truth, protection from good and evil, prayer of healing. It's mostly spells that would help you but not do damage, like invisibility, knock, whole person. There are some interesting spells here that you could probably use, but it's trying to work them into the Lord of the Rings setting that's the issue. And thankfully, this book does also state that this is your game, you can do what you want. So if you wanted to, you could introduce magic in the world like that. I didn't want to do that, because I did say to the guy who's hosting us that I wouldn't fuck with the setting too much, because he loves the setting. So the party start out in there, they make a deal with a merchant to go and kind of help them out, get them to Lake Town. Merchant turns out to drug them. They end up in the Mirkwoods, southern Mirkwood specifically, where they fight an orc and a goblin, and they basically manage to escape pretty easily. I didn't make it too difficult because they're on the 3rd level, and I just wanted to give them a little taste of where they were. It was interesting to run in Lord of the Rings, because I had to avoid a couple of the things I do as a DM, which is a lot of improv, but also not messing with basically the world. Since it isn't my world, I didn't want to crack it open like an egg and fuck with it too much. So the party were in the southern Mirkwood, because I thought, you know what, let's give a little bit of familiarity, let's put in a familiar area that some of them have at least know about, because I don't know if all of them, but I know at least one or two of them have actually read The Lord of the Rings, and most of them, I think all of them have seen the movies. So I put it in an area that was familiar, and I walked from there. And I basically just said, okay, what's the main thing that's in the Mirkwood? Spiders. That's the main thing that's in the Mirkwood. Now, I did find out later that there is actually basically a module for this, which it sets itself in the Mirkwood, which has more variety in enemies. I don't have it, so I didn't want to use it, and I don't like running modules personally. Even in pre-established settings, I'm not a huge fan of running modules, mostly because I have a very bad habit of improving. Well, not bad habit. Improving is a good thing as a DM, but modules restrict me a little bit, and I tend to fuck with them a little bit. And honestly, the players I get, it's not my intention, the players I get tend to do stuff that even a module couldn't predict. I've had that happen in the past, and so I don't like running them, because I feel a little restricted personally. But the party did actually dip fairly well. The Mirkwood elf that they have, who is basically the ranger of the 5th edition, which I believe is the warden, I think. I'm just double checking. Warden. No, the wanderer. Apt name for a ranger. But yeah, that was they had her, and she was helping them. So I believe her character is Merwin. Yeah, Lord of the Rings names are weird. Like, I thought like fantasy names were weird, but Lord of the Rings are weird, and I'm very bad at names. So I remember hers because I kept reading it off in my head, because I had to keep asking her for, hey, give me survival checks, and she's the ranger. They did come in possession. I did want to have magic items in this game, but I didn't want to give them, like, you know, a wand of fireball. So I had to make my own magic items. There are heirlooms in this game, which are basically magic items, but they are basically magic items with a story behind them. And I kind of like that. That's something I always like try and do with important magic items. Like, when it comes to stuff you can buy in 5th edition at a magic shop like Wand of Fireball, these are all like generic magic items that most wizards will eventually make in their time as a wizard. But when it comes to powerful stuff, like I'm talking high tier stuff, I always like to give a bit of a backstory behind them, because it's much more fun with that way, because it gives them a bit more gravitas, and it means that these things have a story behind them. For example, I rolled a Fire Giant Strength Belt in my 5th edition game that I wrote a little story behind it, why it's a Fire Giant Belt, and like what's the story behind it, and tweaked it a little bit. Maybe I'll talk about that at a later date if I can. I'll talk with my other group if I can do a DM vlog on them. I always ask permission, and thankfully the Lord of the Rings ones have given me permission to talk about this. But yeah, it's they became in possession of like a small obsidian pendant, which allows one of them to basically breathe a little bit of fire. So nothing too powerful. It's the equivalent of the Dragonborn breath, but it's fairly pathetic. I gave it 2d6 fire damage, and they encountered a spider in a tree, and the Merwin decided to breathe the fire to the spider, which pretty much killed it. I think they did kill it. I did knock one of them down, or poisoned one of them. I think it was the halfling, which is Pike, if I remember correctly. I'm hopefully going to remember that. Who got poisoned by the Mirkwood spider. Which, again, I didn't have the Lore Master Guide at this point, so I had to use the Monster Manual for a spider. This does actually have like an entire section on like monsters that you can use, like that are appropriate for the Lord of the Rings setting. They're a lot more powerful than the standard ones in 5th edition, if I'm honest. So I do nerf them a little bit. But yeah, they set the forest on fire, which I, as a DM, was like, okay, you set the forest partially on fire. I'll make a couple rolls to see how this turns out. And as of the most current session, where they finally got out of the Mirkwood, they burnt down half the forest. Half of the southern Mirkwood is gone. But I'll get to that section in a wee bit, because that wasn't the only thing they did in the forest. They did come across some bandits where they rescued a dwarven hunter. Dorman, I believe his name is. I am so sorry if I'm forgetting his name. Duradine names are fun. But they became across bandits. He tried to do the Silver Tongue. He's basically the bard of the group. Lot of expertise, a lot of skill, jack of all trades. I love that ability. But he tried to do he's a Silver Tongued. He managed to talk with the bandits a little bit, while Pike, the thief treasure hunter, who's the rogue, managed to sneak around, save the unconscious dwarf. However, he rolled Dorman rolled a 1 on his persuasion, and I gave the warrior, who its name is Ruth, I believe her name is, rolled an insight check, because I was like, I'm going to give them an insight check because these bandits are going to ambush them at this point. They're going to like bring them in, stabby them, get a surprise round on them. Ruth ran a nat 20, so she was able to see that this guy, the bandit leader, was like, nah, he's going to attack us on sight, or as soon as he gets there. They make not quick work of the bandits, because I did knock down Pike, who did a good job. Like, sneak attack is still a thing, and rogues are ridiculously, stupidly broken at times. But yeah, they were able to beat them all. They uncovered an old elven helmet, which I had to basically make up a little backstory behind, because I wanted it to be a unique magic item, but I just had to have a long think about it. And then they also discovered a treasure map that the bandits had, a crude one, which was leading them towards Dol Guldur. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, because I've been pronouncing it wrong for ages. Dol Guldur. Basically, for those unfamiliar, it's where the necromancer was in The Hobbit. So yeah, the party decided that they were going to go there, and this brings us to the latest session, where unfortunately one of our players wasn't able to make it, so I had his character, Pike, the treasure hunter, the rogue, escort the Nime, I believe I called her, the dwarven hunter, out of the southern Mirkwood. At this point, the fire was pretty bad. I may have not made it as bad as it probably should have been, considering it was technically a forest fire. But I had something. I don't want to reveal too much in this in case my players watch this. Well, they kind of figured out that the spiders were trying to stop the fire a little bit, but not very well. They did eventually notice something that happened with a nat 20 on a perception check, I think. So that's why they didn't encounter pretty much any more spiders, because the spiders in Lord of the Rings, the spiders are spiders, but there are intelligent spiders. I don't want to give too much away. So they were trying to stop the forest. They weren't doing too well, sadly, because I kept rolling for them, and sometimes they did well, sometimes they did bad, to the point where half the forest got burned down. But the remainder of the party decided to go to Dol Guldur, where that was where we ended just as they were about to start heading out. Well, I think they ended with a long rest, and then in the next session we started there, and I gave them a couple of wee things. The helm turned out to be basically. I always like the idea of history when it comes to items, so I made this helm a Helm of Insight, which is a bit of a tweak on a custom magic item that basically was one of the first creations of Celebrimbor, the legendary smith who crafted the Rings of Power. And I made it that this was one of the first items he ever made, and it's not a powerful artifact, but elven design with a faint bit of magic to it, and it did give a little bit of benefit, which I allowed Dorman, I believe his name is, to have that. And he's the one who's the massive Lord of the Rings guy, and he was squealing like a little schoolgirl, because I thought, let's give him a little something. I also gave the warrior, who's playing the basically Battlemaster equivalent in this one, her sword eventually becomes a very powerful magical item, even though it's not technically magical. I made that a sword from the Numenera called the Sword of Ardamlos. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, because I don't want to turn my monitor on because it has a massive glare on my glasses. But I made it basically one of the sword that the king of Numenera, an ancient place that the Duradin are actually descended from in Lord of the Rings, made that the sword of kings in a sense. And she was now in possession of it due to receiving a bit of part of her backstory. And I made that like a little bit of a magic helm, a +1, and it basically can nullify any resistances to a foe. Basically, if a foe is resistant to a certain effect, like slashing damage, things like that, this sword, once per long rest, allows them to nullify that effect. Which I thought was, like, it's not overpowered, it's pretty decent. I think for one round of combat, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they decided to go and visit Dol Guldur, and this is where I had a little bit of an issue, because I was like, okay, who's in Dol Guldur at this point? Because where we set it, I think we've set it roughly 10 or 15 years before the Fellowship of the Rings. And thankfully, this book contains a timeline, roughly, if I remember correctly, of what's happening in in the Middle Earth at this time. I'll see if I can find the page. So it has it here somewhere. It basically has a brief timeline of like what's going on at the point in this world, like what's going on, who's where. Basically going from like The Hobbit onwards, I believe. I think it's here before the game. No, it's not it. Probably shouldn't be doing this on camera. I might edit this part out. There we are. Found it. It basically goes through from the old lore all the way up to the year in Lord of the Rings of 2931, which is where Aragorn... Oh, it actually goes further. Yeah, it goes up to 2946 by the looks of it. No, wait. 2951. Which I believe is about 10 or so years before Lord of the Rings. It's basically the point where Sauron has declared himself in Mordor, and this is where it got me here. The Nazgûl enter Dol Guldur. His first act of war, Sauron sends the Nazgûl to reclaim the stronghold in the southern Mirkwood. Their arrival triggers once again the darkening of the Mirkwood. Rumours of a new shadow in the south start to be whispered by many folks in the north. Orcs and goblins have found a bearing of the symbol of the lidless eye. So, I had a little look, and I looked into it a bit more, and the specific Nazgul that was here is called Kamal the Easterling, who is the second in command to the whole of the Nazgul. Witch King of Anbar top, Kamal number 2, Dr. Evil number 2. And the player who is a massive Lord of the Rings fan knew this, but he's a good role player. He's a really good role player. He didn't make his character know it. So they get to Dol Guldur and they find that it's actually being repaired by orcs and what looked like some dwarven slaves who had perished. Also signs of Mirkwood spiders, of course, but mostly dead bodies. And they did the Slayer, who's the armor focused Slayer in this game, which is a barbarian who can wear armor. No, I'm not kidding. So you can imagine how broken that can get after a while. Rolled pretty shitty on the stealth checks, but my orc chieftain, who had the highest perception, also rolled really shitty on his perception checks, so he didn't actually see them, thankfully. But the party did end up deciding to go into Dol Guldur, where they noticed like a green light coming from the top and a veil of black shadow. And they went in and got a surprise round on the orcs and were able to actually take care of quite a few of them, including the orc chieftain who they focused on, thankfully, and they were able to take him down pretty quickly. Ruth being the one who delivered the killing blow with a massive her sword and cleaving the head in half, which intimidated the rest of the orcs. But this also caught the attention of the Nazgul there, Kamal, which one of the orcs went to go and fetch, and I basically every round I made one of them make a perception check to see if they could notice something, and thankfully one of them rolled high enough to notice that the green light was actually coming down. And eventually, after a few other rounds, a few other wee bits of battle, Kamal the Easterling arrives, and the party's third level. The Nazgul they have been statted, but they've kind of got stats that are like, don't fuck with them unless you want to die, especially at low level. I basically, thankfully, Dorman actually used the Helm of Insight to get an insight on the creature. It failed the charisma save. I didn't want to use a legendary resistance on it because I thought, I'm going to give them this because Kamal's confident. The way I looked up in him, he was a bit of a battle person. I might be wrong, but I basically played it that he just saw these as people who are invading his home, and he didn't care. He was just going to take care of them. And I gave it to him because he rolled. The save failed. That the helm, which identifies thing, figured out that this was a fucking Nazgul, and the party have heard of Nazgul. Most of them think they are fairy tale, but the elf and a few others know roughly that these things are real and dangerous. He also gleamed this armor class, which I think was 19, and he just went fuck. And they ran. Ruth stayed for a round, and Kamal came down, and I think dealt 19 or 20 damage in a single hit, and it gets 3 attacks per round, almost knocking the warrior down because she'd already taken a few hits, and was going for the second attack, but I thankfully had a plan for this if they tried to do that, and I introduced Gandalf. The logic behind my mind there was Gandalf would still be checking in Dol Guldur from time to time to see what is going on there. That's how I played it, and I kind of had Gandalf there as a, oh shit, the party's about to die, here's Gandalf to save your fucking ass kind of thing. And that's kind of what happened. He was able to get in there, use his power to drive away the Nazgul briefly, and allowing the party to run. They eventually met Gandalf again. He came to them after they sat down and took a long rest. The fire's still going on. It's Gandalf. He's there to help. If I remember correctly, and I did do a little bit of research, Gandalf can help, but he can't influence. He basically is like I will help guide you, but I cannot be involved personally in some things. I think he does break that rule quite a few times, though, but it's kind of like he's a god tier crack character, and the party were able to convince him with a nice, good persuasion roll from Dorman that he basically was with the company because Gandalf there is trying to basically go check up on dwarves, see how things are going, because he has noticed a change in the world recently, especially since Sauron has declared himself. But yeah, the party managed to get to the town that I established a simple outpost called the Outpost because I'm really imaginative outside of the Southern Mirkwood, and they managed to get out and noticed that half of the Southern Mirkwood had been completely is still not ablaze. They were able to get it down mostly, but basically from pretty much only maybe a mile, not that far from Dol Guldur, and the entirety of the forest from that point, the southern part anyway, is gone. Because I rolled really shitty on the save for the forest, and it's the Mirkwood Elf's fault, surprisingly. Well, not her fault. She reacted, and I rolled really shitty on saves. So the forest burnt down partially. The Mirkwood Elves were helping that party know this now, and they were able to stop it from basically becoming too bad. But yeah, quite a bit of a game changer with half of the Southern Mirkwood gone, especially when Kamal's there. But the party were in town and were able to rest up and get some supplies, and are going to be heading to Lake Town to try and find, hopefully, the merchant who poisoned them, drugged them to be unconscious, and yeah. It's going to be an interesting tale to tell. Hopefully we'll get to there eventually. But that's where we are up today, and it's fun running a game in a pre-established setting, mostly because I don't need to worry about... for anyone who's made a custom setting in your D&D world, you get stuck up on the logistics of things quite a bit, and that's a problem I have. I've established enough in my world where I can run a game in a certain section of my world, but I have other sections that I have not flushed out entirely. With Lord of the Rings, thankfully, most of that has already been flushed out. The Lore Master Guide is really helpful with that, and so is this book. I still need to keep track of things here or there. Lord of the Rings has so many different cultures in it because there are humans in this setting, of course, but there are different cultures and they each get different bonuses and all that, so I have to learn about them. But thankfully there's a lot of information there about Lord of the Rings. With my own setting, I can't do that because all of that stuff is either in my head or in my Google Drive with my folders and notes and all that. So running in a pre-established setting is terrifying because I don't want to fuck it up too much, but at the same time it's also relaxing a little bit that I don't have to worry about the logistics of things too much. And thankfully, with the player who's massive into Lord of the Rings, is able to help me from time to time, and I'm able to fluff a few things here or there. And he says I'm doing a good job, which I appreciate. And it's fun to run. I don't want to lie. It's enjoyable to run the game and have fun and enjoy myself with that. I'm having fun with this, and especially since it is basically 5th edition with Lord of the Rings involved. I'd recommend if you are a Lord of the Rings fan but you don't want to dive into like the One Ring system, which I don't know too much about, but apparently it's quite rule heavy. This is good. Like it does a lot of the work for you, because when he said he wanted to run a Lord of the Rings game, part of me panicked that I was like, oh shit, I have to make up entire Lord of the Rings classes now and stuff like that. But then I remembered I bought this, which thankfully did all the work for me. And this is actually made by the people who are, I think they're just called Softstick Games, Cubic 7. These guys are actually the ones who actually made the One Ring system, so they know what they're talking about, and they do a lot of... The one thing I will say about this is there are some incredibly overpowered shit in this game. There's actually... They're not called feats, but they are called... I think they're called virtues. And the party did level up, so they get points, and our Mirkwood Elf took one. I'll see if I can find it. It's here somewhere, because it was quite the powerful freaking thing. I'll see if I can... I should just get the number on here, because I'm an idiot. I'm a bad person. With virtues, page 100. Where is it? That's the warrior. Virtues, there we are. Where is the Mirkwood Elf one that she took? Mirkwood Elf Dwarf. There we are. I believe is it Deadly Archer or something else? It's a Wood Elf Magic is what she took. Yeah, this one, there's a lot of fluff here. Like, this is entirely Wood Elf Magic. These are basically the feats of the game. You are a master of what mortals might call elf magic. You learn to fling stinging arrows when you first select this virtue. You may later master the making of elf light as you understand during the fellowship phase, spreading a third and final. The fellowship phase, which we'll get to at some point. This is the one that she likes. You can make an arrow flicker as if it's a magical fire, making it fly true. Spending an hit dice, you make an automatic ranged critical hit. So, if she hits, she can spend a hit dice to make it a critical. I am so glad she didn't take Thief. There are also other stuff like Elven Light and Enchanted Sleep, which they'll get to eventually. But that's the one that kind of got me, which I'm just like, you have four automatic criticals banked. There is the caveat that you are using your hit dice, so if you take a short rest and you're badly fucked up, you won't be able to regenerate hit points, which hopefully she realizes. But there is another one here, which I think is actually an open virtue, which is, I think it's a sword one. I don't think it's an open one. It might be there it is. It's a barding one, which thankfully none of the party are. A skilled warrior uses a fort to deflect blows that would otherwise hit their mark. You have learned to fight defensively using a weapon to your full advantage. When you're fighting with another broadsword or a longsword, you add your proficiency to your AC. Your proficiency starts at +2 in this game as well as 5th edition, and only goes up. So, yeah. The feats in this game are broken, but it's Lord of the Rings, and thankfully it is balanced because the creatures here actually do have special abilities that they can do on their turn as well, which makes it easy. I think one of them was the Orc one, the Outlander, Outlaw Chief, which is one I've used. They basically can order their men to rally and make attacks for them, kind of like a battle master. So yes, in a sense, I would say these feats are way overpowered in some instances, but they are thankfully balanced with the enemies that they'll be facing. So I'll probably be wrapping up shortly in this video now. It's fun to run in a pre-established setting. It's frustrating at times because I don't want to fuck up too much, but thankfully I have some good players, and that's what makes it good. Like, I have some really good players who are understanding that this I don't know their setting too well, and thankfully they are respectful enough to not meta game, which is something I'm always worried about. I enjoy it, I have fun with it, and it's great to run it. I have some great players, and yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to wrap this up. I might make this maybe a thing, maybe once a month or something like that, maybe weekly. I'm not too sure, but it's fun to get back into making videos again. It's very simple. I'm not going to be going all out. I do apologise for the mic quality. Unfortunately, my mic I used for my old videos died on me a while ago. But I'm happy to do this. I miss it, and I'm thankful. A big thank you to my players in my Lord of the Rings game who gave me permission to talk about this. Maybe I'll get them in at some point and we can all have a little discussion after sessions. We'll see. I'll think about it. But I had fun. I enjoyed this, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to let me know if you have actually played the Middle-earth game and what you think of it. Like, tell me your DM or player stories in the comment section down below. Just feel free to let me know how you've run Middle-earth, or even feel free to tell me your DM stories down in the comment section down below. I'd love to read them. I'd love to hear more about them. So I'll wrap things up. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all hopefully sooner rather than later. Ciao for now.